Hello, magical people, and welcome back to my channel. My name is Lou, and today I will be offering you a pick-a-card reading themed around the equinox. Now, in the Northern Hemisphere, which is where I am, we are having the autumnal equinox today. If you are in the Southern Hemisphere, then it will be the vernal or spring equinox. So I am speaking probably mostly from a Northern Hemisphere perspective, simply because that's where my personal experience is, but the reading is going to be more general in nature. So essentially, the equinox is the 2 times of year when the light of the day and the dark of the night are in balance. And so there is a lot of theme that comes up around balance. And for the autumnal equinox, the fall equinox here in the Northern Hemisphere, we're looking at a time when we are saying goodbye to summer and goodbye to long days and frenetic energy, and hello to winter and longer nights and smaller, more intimate gatherings, and overall, generally speaking, probably a little bit less doing than what we do in the summertime. So it's a little bit of a slowing down in a way. It's a time for reflection and looking back at both the things that didn't work for us, as well as looking ahead to the things that we're going to be working towards manifesting and bringing into our life in the future. So there's a time for looking back and reassessing so that we can make things for the future. It's a time to think about what we need to release and also what we would like to call in. And so that is essentially what we are going to be looking at here. It's a time for harvest and to wrap up our gardens, both physical and metaphorical, and to reap what we've sown and enjoy the fruits of our labors. It's a time for gratitude and is also a time for planning. And while having gratitude for the things that we have, also using our discernment to make different choices in the future for things that maybe didn't work out the way that we wanted them to. So what we are going to be looking at are essentially 2 things. We're going to be looking at what we would be best served by working towards releasing, and what we would be best served by working towards embracing or calling into our space. Now, as always, please take what resonates and leave the rest. These readings are intended to offer guidance and validation and healing and opportunities for you to contemplate or think about things or bring your awareness to things that maybe you otherwise wouldn't have. They are not intended to tell people what to do. Always use your own guidance and always use your own discernment and make sure that you are making your own choices. Now, having said that, we are going to dive right in. We have 3 readings that we can choose from, and you can choose by number, you can choose by any metric that you'd like, but I did also pull some tokens from my garden that I wanted to also wrap into the reading. So reading 1, our token is Calendula. And calendula is a beautiful plant. It is hardy, and yet it is sensitive. It's an anti-inflammatory, among other things. I primarily use it for its anti-inflammatory properties in my herbal concoctions. But one of the things that I love about it, you can see I actually just cut this one maybe less than 10 minutes ago, and already it's starting to close. They close up at night, they open during the day. So while they're very hardy, they are also very sensitive to their environment. We also have here for our second token, reading 2, we have some Yarrow. And this one still has the blush of pink on it, which it does usually fade to white. And then when it gets dried up, it kind of turns brown. But Yarrow is also a really powerful anti-inflammatory and an antiseptic. So this can be used, it's actually, I can't remember what it, Achilles Milla something. It basically means many leaves, and it was attributed to Achilles because it was so powerful and it had so many uses going way back into antiquity. And so they say, I haven't had the opportunity to try this since I have learned about it, but they say that if you take the leaves from yarrow and crunch them up, if you have a headache and you just kind of rub those essential oils on your temple, it can help to release your headache. So again, a very helpful plant. All of the plants that I selected were helper plants. And then number 3, we have Arnica. And Arnica is really well known for helping to aid healing. So when you have a cut or a bruise or some sort of topical abrasion, Arnica oil can be very helpful for just providing the environment for your body to do the healing that it needs to do. So it's a beautiful plant. It's a very merry plant, and usually it blooms much earlier in the year, and for some reason one of the little clumps that I have in my backyard decided to give me a second bloom so late in the season. So I figured that that was worth something, and that it was asking to be here. So again, we have Calendula for reading 1, Yarrow for reading 2, and Arnica for reading 3. And let's see, any other housekeepings before I dive into it? I do offer personal readings. There's 2 tiers if you'd like. It's if you're willing to wait 48 hours to get the link to the video of your reading, then it's only $30. And if you need something within 24 hours, then it's $50. And essentially the way that works is you submit payment. I've got Venmo and the Cash App, and you also send me an email with your question. I custom design a reading around your question, circumstance, or situation, and then you'll get a link to an unlisted video on YouTube. So only you or whoever you share that link with can actually view the video. So anyway, enough about shameless self-promotion. Let's see, what else here? Yeah, I think that's it. So having said that, we are just going to go ahead and dive right into reading 1. Reading 1, if you selected the Calendula, then this is going to be your reading. And we have a variety of oracle cards and tarot cards that we're going to be looking at here. So I'm going to lay them all out and show them to you as I do so, and then we'll see what we see. So we have Amplify Your Positive Emotions as an oracle card. We have Grasshopper Spirit, Taking a Leap of Faith. We also have the Kairos. Oh, I'm going to have to look in the book. I don't even know what that word means. Hopefully I brought the book down. I think I brought the book down. We'll have to see. Anyways, we have Kairos, and we also have 4 oracle cards. We have Faith. Oh, interesting that Faith is coming up twice already. And then we have, for a moon card, Supermoon, Emotions Are Running High. So before I get into the tarot cards, I'm going to pull out the book and see what that Kairos card is all about. And oh no, I don't have the book. So I'm going to have to pause this video, run upstairs and look for that book, and then we will see what we see. Oh, how unprofessional. I will be right back. Okay, magical people. Well, I don't know what the heck I've done with that book. I very rarely lose things, but I do sometimes misplace things. And so we are going to have to just go on my intuitive reading from this card with this word that I have never heard before, because I just don't know where it is. So let's continue pulling out your cards. So for the things that to be released for tarot cards, we have Conflict, the 9 of Swords. We have, or I'm sorry, 9 of Wands. We have Burden, the 10 of Swords, and we have the Emperor. For things that you would be best served by learning how to embrace, we have the Strength card, the 3 of Challenges, otherwise known as the 3 of Swords, and then we also have the Weaver of Challenges, which this is known as the Queen of Swords. So what I am seeing here is that you're really being invited to take a leap of faith. You're being invited to, like, let's take a look at this card here, the one that I don't have an actual explanation for. So this card here, the first thing that I'm seeing is that the blue designs around the side are rather reminiscent of like a lotus flower. And so there is an unfolding that's happening. And then within the middle of that unfolding, there is clarity, there is vision, there is something being seen from that expansion. And so I feel like, first of all, where you kind of are right now, what you're being invited to do is to take a leap of faith. One, I mean, literally, that card comes up twice, both with the animal spirit as well as with the return of spirit deck. And so you're being invited to have faith while also acknowledging that this is a time of emotions running high, and you're being invited to amplify your positive emotions, which this is, amplifying your positive emotions is definitely not at all the same thing as being avoidant of negative feelings. It's rather about making a choice. So say, for example, I've got some free time in the afternoon and trying to decide what to do at that time. I can either put my energy and my effort into being stressed and not really getting anything done because I'm stressed about all of the things that need to be done, or this circumstance or that situation or whatever, or I can choose to get myself out into the nature and play in the water a little bit. And by being in a place where I am enjoying what I'm doing and I'm putting myself in a place where I'm trying to amplify those positive emotions, it provides perspective on the more difficult things. So I feel like there is also, and interesting with this card as well, and that clarity, I do feel like there is you're being invited to have a little bit of a perspective shift. So now with the tarot, what we are being invited to let go of. We have the Nine of Wands and the Ten of Swords and the Emperor card. And so what you're being invited to release is the burden of conflict. And I mean, conflict will happen. That's just going to be life. But there's a way of moving through that energy of conflict and not inviting conflict, but dealing with it when it needs to come up, you know, because there's a difference between being assertive enough that you show up for conflicts when they need to happen and being more in the energy of seeking out conflict. So maybe this is a situation where you've almost been kind of stuck in a rut, moving between that, like, there's so much conflict, it feels so hard, I don't know what to do, and that kind of just gets you into that place where you're sort of like re-wounding yourself with the conflicts that you're having rather than actually being able to move out of them. Now, since the Emperor card came up too in the energy to work on releasing, I think this is pretty interesting. So the Emperor, of course, like all of the cards, has many, many positive qualities, but since this is showing up as something that's to be released, I'm wondering if maybe you've, in an effort to try and manage the conflict and the burden and the heaviness, you are moving into a space of being overly controlling and trying to dictate too much how things go on. And that's just kind of like reinvigorating this energy of conflict and burden. And so you're really being invited to release the energy of control, release that sensation that if I can't control it, then things are going to fall apart. Sometimes things will fall apart, whether or not we can control them, but to believe that we can have absolute control over everything that happens in our life is just really setting yourself up for failure, because that's an absolutely unrealistic expectation to have. And so you're being invited to loosen your grip on those more difficult things. And it's kind of like a knot, right? Like if you have a knot in some rope, then and then you add something else to that. So instead of like loosening it, say you put water on it, and instead what that does is that causes that knot to swell, and it causes the rope to swell so that there's no way you're going to get it out. So it's kind of like removing your gaze from, or removing all of your attentional energy from more difficult circumstances without being avoidant, can actually be helpful to just allowing things to flow. So it's like trying to release resistance is maybe a good overview of those cards. And then things that you would be best served by trying to encourage or trying to bring in. First of all, we have this strength card. And like, I love the stories that come up behind this card because I think it's really true, and I think it's something that we don't focus on, is that strength, there's brute strength where, you know, maybe she could have figured out a way to kill this giant wolf, and some people would have called that strength. But instead, she found a way to make that adversary, her ally. And because they are both strong creatures, the sum is greater than the parts. So this card is inviting you to, again, kind of continuing on with the theme of to release that control and release that resistance. This is instead inviting you to work with what you have and realize that you have everything that you need, in terms of, like, you know, emotional space, energetic space, thinking space. And that really trying to, like, strong arm a situation can sometimes not be the right thing to do. Instead, having finesse and working within the boundaries of a difficult situation can lead us to a lot more fruitful end than if we try and just fight our way through a situation. Now, interestingly, with the, and this is why I keep talking about avoidance and making sure that we don't fall into that place of avoidance, is that with the Three of Swords card, you know, this is the card of having a broken heart, and this is a card of grief and of mourning. And so you're being invited to acknowledge those negative feelings when they arise, but to meet them with compassion rather than fighting against them. And I personally have found that when I am able to do that, then I can find lessons. I can find wisdom in those griefs and in those sadnesses and in those darker feelings. So it's about also in having the discernment to make the, having discernment over clarity around when to apply what. You know what I mean? Because, like, surely not every situation can be met with trying to strong arm things, and surely not every situation can be met by trying to finesse, you know, or trying to have compassion. I mean, compassion is always good. Right? Compassion is always good to have. But, you know, there is this air of, like, having more clarity about your truth and making sure that, you know, kind of like with that air energy, again, with the swords, that, like, things are just, you're letting things flow. And so you are neither being in a space where you are letting people take advantage of you, or just letting other people's opinions or thoughts on things kind of, like, push you around, but also not being in the place of being so closed off to external data that you end up putting yourself in that rut of conflict and burden and feeling like there's no way out. So I feel like, you know, interestingly, since this is the equinox and it is a lot about the balance between the light and the dark, I feel like balance is one of the big things that you are being invited to do here, is to really have a better understanding of the way your thoughts and your emotions and your feelings work internally, and also how that shows up in the outside world. You know, it's totally natural to feel uncomfortable with conflict and to feel like there is a burden with having to manage conflict, and that can be very painful. But that also doesn't mean that the appropriate solution is to just say, no, I refuse to have conflict in my life. Because that's just, you know, again, That's just an unrealistic expectation to set for yourself, because life is complex and life is messy, and there will be times of conflict and difficulty that we just need to show up for, and show up knowing that that energy will change. And it's like, the more we either try and resist change or hold on to the way things already are in some way, the less flexible and adaptable that we are to showing up in the present moment, because we're always either trying to hold on to things from the past, or we are being fearful of things in the future. So if we're so past focused and so future focused, what is that doing? Is it's preventing us from experiencing the present moment right now. So I'm going to pull one more oracle card before I send you on your way, and just one final bit of advice from your guides as you take this leap of faith into acknowledging that emotions run high sometimes, but also knowing that you have agency and autonomy to direct the way your emotional responses play out, that you don't have to be a victim of your own emotions, but that you can get greater clarity about yourself and your wants and your desires and your preferences by having an understanding of those emotional responses. Oh, I love this. And the final card we have for you, group one, my Calendula friends, is don't dim to fit in. How are you dimming your light in order to fit in? And again, I feel like this is really going back to having that clarity, allowing that expansion to happen, allowing yourself to have faith, not only in yourself, but in your endeavors and life in general. And that while you have all of that backdrop of having faith, there is still the very real managing of, you know, the kind of slogging through life, and that sometimes things are hard and sometimes things are messy. And that, like, even when things are hard and even when things are messy, even when you feel like you're meeting resistance externally rather than internally, you know, you're being guided to just remember who you are, and to not allow your beautiful, bright, shining light to be dimmed by circumstances. So group one, Calendula friends, I hope you find this helpful. I hope you found something in it that you can take away into this equinox season and really work on bringing that transformation that wants to happen, that place of having compassion for ourselves when things are hard, and yet not holding so tight to the hardness that we can't let ourselves get out of it. So group one, I hope you found this helpful. Best of luck to you. Don't forget, as always, to be kind and gentle with yourself. Hello, group two. If you selected Yarrow as your flower token for today, whoops, then this is going to be your reading. So we have got a selection of tarot cards and oracle cards. I'm going to pull them all out, and then we will see what we see. So the first oracle card that we have coming out is laughter, and being in that place where we can enjoy where we are in the present moment. We also have the castle showing up here. Interesting. And for, oh, I love this. For an animal spirit, we have the buffalo spirit. The abundant universe will provide. And that is sure true. Interesting. So, and then we have two more oracle cards here. We have Gibbous Moon. You're very close to achieving your goal. And we also have sexuality. Interesting. So I feel like there's something that you have been working on that has maybe been a lot of work, but it's also something that, like, you felt a lot of chemistry with. Like, there's something that you kind of, like, haven't been able to put down. Like, you feel like there's a real treasure in what it is that you're working towards. But I feel like there's also been a lot of self-doubt coming up, or doubt just in general. So now for tarot cards, let's see what we've got. So first, I pulled some cards from one deck for things to release, and then I pulled from another deck things to embrace. Ooh, interesting. Oh, this is fascinating. So for the things to release, we have the Son of Feathers, which is otherwise known as the Knight of Wands. We also have the Star card, and then we have the Eight of Feathers, which is otherwise known as the Eight of Wands, and this is for what is to be released. And then we have, for the what to be embraced, we have the Moonlight card. Oh, very interesting. We also have the Seven of Boons, otherwise known as the Seven of Pentacles, and the Three of Visions, otherwise known as the Three of Cups. So yeah, I feel like there is something that you have been working towards that felt like it was wish fulfillment to you, and it felt like it was going to be, like I said, something that you have a lot of doubt on, or maybe something has come up that has, you know, sort of like a bump in the road. There's something that's come up that's caused you to wobble. And this won't resonate for everybody, but it is possible that it's somebody that you are in partnership with, in some sort of romantic or sexual, physical partnership, that is maybe bringing that doubt up. Again, I feel that with this card, like, I feel like chemistry is the thing that's really coming up here. So I feel like there's something that you've been working on that you really feel very attached to, and maybe it's almost like the attachment to it has, in a weird way, kind of actually moved you a little bit further away from it. And what's interesting here, I'm going to start with this one. I'm going to start with the Star card, because since this showed up as something that's to be released, it's kind of an interesting place for the Star to show up, right? Because the Star is all about like wish fulfillment and reaching for our dreams. And what I am wondering is, if this wobble, as it has come up for you, I wonder if it's that you've maybe started to realize that this thing that you are working towards, this goal that you're working towards, maybe your feelings and thoughts have changed on it a little bit. And so it's like there's this thing that you've been working to, or working towards, or trying to achieve for so long, but now as you've gotten closer, you're almost feeling like maybe that's not the dream that I thought it was. So what's interesting here is that, okay, so this card too, this deck calls it swiftness, but it's also the card of communication. And with the Sun of Feathers here, so this is the fiery, or the airy part of fire. The Knight of Wands is sometimes a little bit impulsive, and is not terribly grounded. Being both fire and air, there isn't a whole lot of grounding energy in either fire or air, and you know, we can end up with a real firestorm sometimes when those two are put together. So there's a caution that often comes with the Sun of Feathers card, is that, like, yes, on the one hand, you've leveled up and moved that much closer to being able to harness that creative energy of the wands, but on the other hand, being the knight, you know, it's still not the king or queen. Like, there's still lessons to be learned and things to pay attention to outside of yourself. So I kind of feel like there's been some communication about things, and there's been some maybe a little bit ungrounded in the way that you've been going after this goal, and maybe that's what's kind of brought up these feelings of somberness, or wondering if you are going to be able to get it done. Because I think with this Buffalo spirit, the abundant universe will provide. I think that maybe you've been feeling a little bit hemmed in a way, like kind of like almost like, trying to think of a good example. It's kind of like putting in a lot of work to move towards a goal. Like, say I wanted to start a business, say I wanted to open a bookstore. I do not want to open a bookstore, but say I did want to open a bookstore, and I put in so much work towards trying to figure out what kind of books I want to sell, what's the theme of my store going to be, where's the location of the store going to be, how am I going to manage vendors. Like, there is a huge amount of work that goes into figuring out. And as it gets closer and closer, I'm almost like, oh my God, I've been working on this for so long now, I almost don't even want it. But I've put so much effort into it that I feel like I can't back down now. So it's almost like that feeling of having painted yourself into a corner a little bit. And so what your guides are inviting are, first, bring yourself back to the present. Allow yourself to enjoy. Laughter can be incredibly healing. Whether, I mean, and it could be like big laughter, like going out and doing something fun with your friends. It could even be just watching some stand-up comedy on TV or on YouTube or something like that, and just allowing yourself to... Laughter is an emotional release, and sometimes it can help us release other emotions as well. Like, it's just a way of letting things move so that we can bring ourselves more into a place of presence. I also feel like this is something that you have been going after, that you do feel very, like you do feel like there is goodness in it. You do feel like there is a treasure within. But I also feel like with the way these pearls are showing up around the edges here, that you do feel a little bit boxed in by it. And a castle can be both a place of succor and comfort and home. You know, they talk about the home as being a castle. But castles also can be very cold and unfeeling and not very full of warmth and laughter and love. So there's an interesting dichotomy showing up with this card. Pardon me. Now, for the things that your guides are inviting you to embrace, the first thing we have coming up is Moonlight, which I love this. I love this especially in relationship to the star card coming up, because the star is a single point of light that we can gaze at and fix our attention on and work towards. And moonlight is much more diffuse. Moonlight, like when the moon is dark, when it's a new moon, which is coming up soon, when it's a new moon and the sky is dark, the stars don't do very much to illuminate our surroundings. So while they can be good to keep your eye on a star in the distance so you know where you're moving towards, it's not very good for lighting up your environment. So I feel like one of the invitations here is to move from that star energy where you believe that you know exactly where you're going and you have no choice but to continue to that one fixed location, to instead allow the moonlight to show you different opportunities and to allow yourself to have a little bit more open-ended idea of this project, and maybe detach yourself from the notion of this is where I'm going and no place else will do. This is more the energy of like, well, I can't see very clearly because it is moonlight, so there's this air of mystery, but I can see well enough where I can still navigate forward. And then, interestingly again, with this Seven of Pentacles card, this is the card of like, looking at where we've been, looking at all of the doors that we've already moved through, and taking a pause and a moment of assessment before we make yet another choice about a new door to go through. So I feel like you're really being invited to reassess things a little bit. And depending on what your circumstances are, like, I mean, God, it could be anything, but it feels like maybe you've been so focused on a singular goal that you are maybe missing out on the notion that as you've been working towards this goal, you've grown, you've changed, you've become different, because that's what happens when we do things, when we experience life, we are always changing. And so maybe the place that you thought you wanted to go isn't exactly the place that you actually still want to go. And then the other card that we got for what energies to embrace is the Three of Cups, the Three of Visions card. And this is a card of being in community and being in joyful community, which doesn't mean partying or anything like that necessarily. Also, it can mean going to a good party with your friends and just having a banger time, and again, letting yourself be in that energy of laughter in the present. But even more than that, there is a deeper meaning to this card, which is calling in your community, whether it's your family of origin or your chosen family, whatever works for you is fine. But really allowing yourself to consult with the people that you trust and consult with the people that you love, that you know love you, and with whom there are mutual supports, and maybe getting an idea of what their thoughts are on this. Like, sometimes we need to just talk things out loud in a place that feels safe to us so that we can get greater clarity on how we're feeling and what we're doing. So it's not even necessarily, it's not relying on other people to, sorry, there's a fly running around in here. Well, not running around, I guess flying around. So there's this energy of like, oh, dang that. What was I going to say? Yeah, so it's not about putting the decision making on other people outside of you. It's more about just letting other people outside of you who feel safe and good to you be a place where you can bounce off ideas and allow your own thinking to move forward. And of course, people might have some really interesting points that maybe they didn't feel like they could bring to you because you've been so single-minded and they didn't want to throw you off your game. So there is this feeling of like, yeah, checking in with people, not checking in with people so that you can listen to what they say and then do exactly what they say, but checking in with people so that you can get greater clarity on what needs to be reassessed and whether you keep moving down the same path or if you let your vision to be still a little bit in mystery, but a little bit broader in scope. Now, before I send you on your way, I am going to pull one more oracle card from your guides and just have this as a final message to you during this time. It does feel like you've been putting in so much work for so long. I do think that, you know, that again, since it was the first card that came out, I just feel the need to like reiterate that space of actually both the first card and the last card that came out were about trying to be in touch with the things that bring us joy, the things that allow us to blow off a little steam and allow that energy of love and laughter to move through us, because it can be very healing and it can also very indirectly provide clarity on a host of other things. And then the final card is we have protection. Call back your power, cut the cords, and soul retrieval. So, and again, this won't resonate with everybody, but it does make me wonder if maybe the single-minded thing that you have been moving towards, that you thought was one of your biggest dreams and wishes, if maybe that's something that wasn't 100% yours to begin with. If maybe it kind of wasn't one of those things where somebody made a suggestion or told you something and you just kind of like took it and ran with it. So I feel like as you're going through this reassessing period, whether you're trying to decide whether you're going to stick with your same star dream or if you're going to open up your gaze to the entire night sky, I feel like, you know, this is a really good opportunity to check in with yourself and really find out like what it is that's driving you. Is it actually your dreams? Is it actually your desires? Or have you interjected somebody else's wishes and desires and dreams for you into your own? So there is a real opportunity here to do some real soul searching. But regardless, you know, the Buffalo Spirit is showing up to telling you that the abundant universe will provide. So even if you do choose to release the specificity of the dream that you're working towards right now, that ought not be considered a failure. That is just the universe indicating to you that your path to abundance isn't exactly what you thought it was. I feel like there's this song that has kept coming to mind while I've been talking the last few minutes, and Amanda something or other is her name, and she's married to that author, Neil Gaiman, I think is his name, and I can't remember her last name right now. But anyways, there's a song, and it's all about how, you know, she had these grand notions for who she'd be someday, and she kept putting in the work towards who she'd be someday, who she'd be someday, who she'd be someday. And then finally, she had this moment of realization where it's like, huh, maybe I don't actually want to be what I always thought I wanted to be. Maybe it's time for me to instead just let myself explore that a little bit more and release myself from these old thoughts that belonged to a previous version of me that had a lot less wisdom, that had a lot less healing, that had a lot less experience and understanding. So like sometimes we need to just update. We need to update our dreams so that they are custom made for us. And that is what you're being invited to do. Is to really focus on you and what your dreams are. You've already proven you're more than capable of reaching your goals and moving towards your goals and putting the work in. So this is just inviting you to make sure that all of that hard work that you're doing is for something that you actually really, really want. And it may continue to be a moving target. That's sometimes how it works. You know, you move towards one thing, and as you get closer, you realize, okay, that's not it exactly, but I'm going to take everything that I learned here and just shift my gaze 3 degrees. And And so it's not like a starting over, but it's like an evolution. We need to let ourselves evolve. So group 2, my Yarrow friends, I hope you found this helpful, and I'd love to hear from you if you have any thoughts that you'd like to share. And of course, as always, please don't forget to be kind and gentle with yourself. Hello, group 3. If you selected this beautiful, cheery little Arnica, then this is going to be your reading. So we have a variety of oracle cards and tarot cards, and I am going to lay them all out, and then we will see what we see. Oh, so interesting so far. So the first card that came out is that you are worth it. I don't know that that needs any further clarification at this point. The second card that came out is the healer. And look at that, the snake shedding its skin. That's interesting. The third oracle card that came out is Pig Spirit, using your mind wisely, or use your mind wisely. Then we have, New Moon in Cancer. You and your loved ones are safe. Oh, that's so interesting. So interesting. I feel like there's been a lot of fear and concern. Oh, and then the last oracle card we have for the moment is Storm. So yeah, I feel like you've been really weathering a storm that has made you feel very confused or very concerned or very anxious, and maybe that's also touched on some core wound stuff, especially with this You Are Worth It card coming out here. Maybe your circumstances have both invited the space for healing to happen and for you to be your own healer, because ultimately self-healing is kind of where it's at. I mean, all healing is self-healing. You know, so you've been invited to move into that space of being the healer. And I'm curious as the Pig Spirit with the use your mind wisely. I feel like this is just showing up to validate that, you know, maybe you've had some concerns about your ability to think things through and show up for yourself. And so this is just reiterating that, yeah, you can do that. You can do that. There's nothing wrong with you. You are worth it. And while there has been a lot of chaos and such going on, there is very much also this energy of having a lot of fear. Like there's all of the chaos has brought up a lot of fear for you. So now for the things that we are looking to release. Ooh, very interesting. So first tarot card for things that you are being invited to release during this equinox season is the Hermit. So it's almost like you're being invited to step out in the world in a way. Maybe you have kept yourself away from the world for too long, and it's just time. You've been gestating you and your thoughts and ideas for a while. And I mean, especially with COVID, it does feel that many people have been much more in a hermit mode this last couple of years than before. But you're being invited to release that and to let the light that shines within you be seen. And not to hide it away, which I feel like again might be coming back to some of this self-worth stuff. We also have the Daughter of Roots, which this is one of my favorite core cards. This is the Page of Pentacles, and it is the earthy part of Earth. This is very grounded, very rooted feeling, and kind of like this little bear here, you're being invited to climb up the tree. Like you've spent so much time on the ground, or perhaps as the hermit, perhaps even underground, allowing things to happen and making your own transformation. And again, it's time to bring that groundedness to a new level. Now, we also have the Two of Cups here being the Union card. And so like I feel like it's not like you're being invited to release union or the notion of union. I feel like it's more that you're being invited to change your mind about what love is, or change your understanding of how love works. And like, see here, these two cups are both full. So maybe you are, and again, always take what resonates and leave the rest, but maybe you are a person who has been overgiving in your relationships in the past. And so like your cup, has needed to keep the other person's cup filled because they couldn't keep their own cup filled. Like, there's something here about that. So let's take a look. Oh, wow, cool. So the energy of things to embrace is, first of all, we have the Four of Spells, which this is known as the Four of Wands. And this card is true happiness. There's celebration, there's a very equal balance. I oftentimes think of this card as the 1111 card as well. And so there is this, it's a very happy card. Like, you're really being invited to question for yourself what happiness means to you, because it means something different to all of us. We also have the White Heart, which is known as the Fool. So you're being invited to take a leap of faith and move into a completely new realm for you. And then we also have the Five of Challenges, which this is known as the Five of Wands. And like, this is the card of standing up for yourself, of not chasing after conflict, but allowing yourself to be in conflict when it calls for it. Like, there's an assertiveness that comes up with the Five of Wands. Like, it's not just, I'm shouting at people for the sake of shouting at people, or because I'm in a bad mood and I need to just get these nasty feelings out of me. It's not that. This is more the type of conflict that occurs when somebody says or does something hurtful or wrong, and you allow yourself to, rather than shrink away from that, you allow yourself to be like, no, that's not okay. And it's okay for me to say when things aren't okay, because I know that I am worth it and that I don't deserve this. So it's more of like a maturity of, gosh, you know, group 2 or group 3, sorry, my Arnica friends, I feel like you're really being invited to have some major transformation here. We have major arcana on both sides of both your release and your call in. And with the healer and using your mind wisely and the storm card and the you are worth it, I feel like you're really being invited to go on a new journey of self-discovery, to take this hermit energy of finding your own light in the world and lighting your own way and allowing that light to shine so big and so bright and out in the world around you that other people can see it as well. And I also wonder, you know, with this healer card, somebody once said this to me years and years ago, and I couldn't hear it at the time, I don't think, because it just felt like too much responsibility, but I think they were right. So take this with a grain of salt if you feel like you have to, but I do believe that you are being invited to step into your, not only your own healing, but that your own healing allows you to recognize that you are a healer. And that first we heal ourselves, and that through the process of healing ourselves, we gain experience and wisdom and knowledge and understanding that allows us to facilitate others in healing themselves. So being a healer doesn't mean that you go and heal other people. I personally don't believe that anybody can heal anybody. They can just set the stage and create the environment for those other people to heal themselves. And so I feel like maybe as you go through your own healing journey and you move towards that space of finding your 1111 space, finding your happy space, that space where you feel fulfilled and creative and excited and connected, like all of the good things in life, right? As you move towards that and move out into the world, and as that allows you to have greater sense of assertiveness in yourself, then that will really allow that skin, that snake skin of not feeling worth it, of not feeling worthy, to be shed. You know, like there really is definitely a, it's interesting. It's like there's there's this sense that, oh, interesting. Okay, so again, this isn't going to resonate for everybody, but I wonder if for some of you, you tend to outsource your worry about other people. And okay, that's not a very good, I didn't use very good words there, but by that, what I mean is that maybe you're a person who worries so much about what's happening in your friend's life or your family's life or your loved ones in general, that you let that take up the majority of your energy, which doesn't leave a whole lot for you to show up for yourself. So I wonder if you've been kind of like, as you've been experiencing this storm, whatever this chaos has looked like for you that has been kicking up all of this worry, I wonder if maybe that also hasn't been a way for you to avoid the fact that there is this core wound about your own worth. It's kind of like, I mean, y'all may or may not be into Enneagram, but the Enneagram is a fascinating system, and for some reason, Enneagram 2 is coming to mind. And what sometimes people who are Enneagram 2s will do is they will focus so much on taking care of other people that they don't take care of themselves. And what happens when that can move into unhealthy territory is that it kind of ends up looking like martyrdom. You know what I mean? Because that person is showing up so much for everybody else that they're almost expecting other people to do the same. And it's not really super healthy for anybody to do that. Like, showing up for other people is obviously great, and we should do that. And we should be there for those that we love and those that we care about, and humanity in general. Like, but not to the exclusion of getting your own needs met. You know, you kind of think of like, this is such a silly thing that just popped into my mind, but I'm kind of imagining somebody who, like, you know, they spend all of this time creating this huge meal for other people, and then they don't eat. And, like, there's no reason why they couldn't eat. Like, all of the food is there. It's already been prepared. But there's this interesting thing that happens where it's like, I am only here to be of service to others. It's a strange martyrdom that sometimes happens, because obviously that's not true. We are here to serve a variety of things. We're not here to just do one thing, but I think primarily we're here to serve ourselves. And, you know, it's like when they say in an airplane about always putting on your own air mask first. Air mask? That's not what it's called, but you know what I mean. And then taking care of those around you. So it's kind of like, maybe you are a person who has always made sure everybody around you has their masks on, and meanwhile, you can't fucking breathe. Pardon my language. I guess I'll have to put a not for children on this. But I always put a not for children on this, so it doesn't matter. Anyways, hope you don't find the language offensive. It's part of who I am. It's just going to happen. But it's really important to make sure that you are showing up for yourself and making sure that you can breathe, making sure that you are feeding yourself, making sure that you are getting your own needs met, because it's in the same way that, like, we can't meet everybody's needs, we can't expect everybody else to meet ours. There will be times, even in the best, healthiest, most loving, wonderful relationships, where we won't be able to meet the needs of our relationship partner, or our relationship partner won't be able to meet our needs. And that's okay. Like, that's just life, you know? But as long as we make sure that we are always showing up for ourselves, and even when we can't get our own needs met perfectly, as long as we're still showing up, like, okay, maybe you didn't put the air mask on perfectly, maybe it's not like perfectly sealed around you, but you know, you got it on and the oxygen is flowing and you're getting the sustenance that you need. You know, it's kind of like that. I'm sorry I'm using such like a whole bunch of just strange word metaphors, but it is kind of like, that's just, you know, that's kind of the energy of it, is that, like, I feel like this is a very big time for you, group 3. And I think it's also interesting that you selected the Arnica, and that Arnica is very much an herb of setting the stage to optimize healing to happen, and that this pull has been so much about healing and letting yourself heal and letting those core wounds go, recognizing that that light that you have within you is beautiful and it's special and it's uniquely yours. There's no other light exactly like it ever. There never has been, there never will be, and that like it's time for you to allow that light to move out into the world and continue to guide you outside as it's guided you internally as well. So I feel like there's a really huge opportunity here for you, group 3, my Arnica friends, to really allow yourself to own your worth and own your assertiveness and the fact that you have a right to exist. It seems silly to even say such a thing, and yet I know that's something that I've struggled with myself at certain points, is that like I almost have felt that like I'm so broken I don't even deserve to like be here, you know, I'm so wounded, I'm so useless, you know, like all sorts of like negative self-talk that just isn't true. And it's not like I don't ever get into those moments anymore, because I do, because I'm human and everybody has a shitty day every now and again. But now I'm able to more able to ride the waves of that discomfort and those feelings of unworth, knowing that at some point the equilibrium will slowly be restored, and that it's just a moment that I have to move through, and that moment and that self-doubt doesn't have to dictate all of my life. I can just recognize that it's a moment, and that moment arose from previous moments and previous circumstances and previous things that go way, way, way back in the Wayback Machine, and that none of it means I'm not worthy of existing and not worthy of trying to live my best life. And I feel like there's like that kind of energy. So I don't know if any of that resonates for you at all, but I hope that made sense. So before I send you on your way, I'm going to pull one final oracle card, just a card from your guides. One last one. Oh, perfect. Just perfect. Align your life. What is not aligned or needs to change? And that, I think, sums it up really well right there. Like, you are worthy. You and your loved ones are safe. And there have been storms. There have been wounds. There has been chaos. There's been a lot of pulling away and regrounding and maybe holding yourself back from the world, and maybe even holding yourself back from... We're going to go back to this Two of Cups real quick, because I just had another message come through. I feel like both of these birds are you, and you are being invited to not look away, to look at yourself in the eye and still recognize that you are capable and worthy of having full cups. So group 3, my Arnica friends, I hope you found this helpful and that at least some of it resonated with you. And as always, please don't forget to be kind and gentle with yourself.